Hey YouTube, it's Rob from RP Model Railroads, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to lubricate your TYCO diesel locomotives. And I'm only going to stick to lubrication in this video because obviously you can make a much longer video about how to fully maintenance and clean your diesel locomotives, but I just want to give some quick tips on how to properly lubricate your TYCO diesels. Now, this is one of my TYCO Midnight Special Shark Noses. I've had it in my collection for years now. I haven't really ran it in a while, and I noticed when I started to apply power, hold on, let me put it in reverse, that it does that. It starts to squeak and make weird noises. Now, you could go through and clean the gears on this locomotive and everything else. I did originally do this when I got the locomotive, so I know it's not that. The contacts, as you can see, are shiny clean. So in this video, I want to show you how exactly and where exactly to lubricate a TYCO PowerTorque diesel locomotive. And then we're going to see if that fixes this particular TYCO Shark Nose's squealing. Now, the squealing PowerTorque motor is a pretty common problem with PowerTorques. And a lot of times, I think people overthink the reason why it could be squeaking, so they tend to lubricate the axles and stuff like that. It is important to make sure that they are greased, but not over-greased, because that can lead to more and further problems, especially with traction. So let's get this thing over on the work table, and I'll show you some of the tips I've learned from being a TYCO collector for many years now. Alright, so now that we have the Shark over here on the work table, I want to get into popping this truck off. And by the way, whenever you're working on any TYCO PowerTorques, the best tool to use is a very small and very thin slotted screwdriver. This is very useful for easily popping out the trucks, also easily popping off the truck cover. Sometimes you can get lucky with a small screwdriver and they might not break. Other times they do. I'd say probably like 50-50, at least in my experience. And also, it's just helpful so you don't scratch the bottom of the shell in any way whenever you're working with it. So, what I'm going to do is pop out the power shell here. Power truck, if you will. Alright, and it looks like we've got the light bulb that came out there. Alright, that's fine. Anyway, so as you can see on the inside here, it's a little bit difficult to use the screwdriver. So obviously, here's the pinion gear. Obviously, that's the main gear that you want to make sure is lubricated. It's a little bit dry, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of this Labelle lubricating oil, which, by the way, in my opinion, is some of the best oil, but everybody has their own preferences. So put a little bit of oil behind the gear, not too much, because obviously you don't want it to get all over the other gears. And it might be hard to see in the camera, but looking down inside these other gears, they're already lubricated. There's already some grease there. Especially you can see it down here. You can see some grease. I'm not going to put any more because the gears are moving rather freely, so there's no need to put any more lubrication. Now, there's actually a second place to lubricate TYCO PowerTorques, and it's actually on the contact side of the shell. This might be very interesting, but it's there. So what I want to do is see if I can't pop this thing off. There we go. To get better access. Now, on some TYCO contact plates on the back of a PowerTorque motor, they will say oil. Now, on this one, it's kind of difficult to see, but you can see right here, if I can bring it up to the lens, right here it says oil, and it's got an arrow pointing to this small hole right here. This hole is actually the back of what appears to be the pinion gear drive shaft that runs through the motor, comes out this side and attaches to the pinion gear, and this is the end of it on the opposite side. Now, on some older TYCO PowerTorques, you won't see anything on the plate that says oil, but you will see the little place where there is a hole, and you can see the beginning of the drive shaft there. So what you want to do is don't put any oil anywhere else. All you want to do is put a little bit of oil right in that hole, right there. Let it soak in. If you do get a little bit extra, just wipe it off. You don't want it getting on the contact plates, getting on the motor. This is very effective because for pretty much all of my squealing TYCO PowerTorques, it was because I never lubricated this part of the PowerTorque motor. I actually had no idea that you had to lubricate this part until I learned from another TYCO collector. So I just want to pass this along. So this is a very easy fix to a squealing TYCO PowerTorque motor. Now, I do want to make a quick disclaimer. If this doesn't work, then chances are the brushes and the commutator on the inside of the PowerTorque motor are pretty dirty. Which in that case, that's a complete other subject that you would have to, pop off this back plate and then clean the brushes, etc. But normally, this is the way to fix the squealing TYCO PowerTorque motor. So what I'm going to do is snap this little thing back on. Be careful with the wires. There we go. And we're going to twist it back around and pop it back in the shell if I can. Alrighty. Oop. Truck cover is coming off. That's because I removed it before, so Don't be alarmed. This doesn't typically happen to normal people. There we go. It's in, and this truck cover I was able to pop off a long time ago, so that snaps back in. Alright, let's take it over to the layout, and let's see if it fixed the issue. Alrighty, so we got the shark back on the layout. Let's turn up the power and see what happens. Alright, this thing runs very well. I don't hear any squeaking anymore. Sounds really good. Now, what I'm going to do is bring it to a stop. Alrighty, and switch it into reverse. Thing actually sounds a little bit quieter than it did before. Not sure if it's just my ears, but it sounds pretty good. Especially in reverse. Alright, and there you have it. So if you have a squealing TYCO PowerTorque diesel, this is the way to properly lubricate it. And if your squealing issue doesn't go away, then chances are there's some sort of a contact issue. The brushes could be dirty, as I previously mentioned, or the commutator on the inside. And again, that's a completely separate issue from lubrication. And obviously, when you're lubricating a TYCO locomotive, you also want to make sure that the gears are properly lubricated, etc., which is why I lubricated the pinion gear. The other gears were already greased. You can see grease on them. Therefore, I didn't want to put any extra oil and cause any slippage or problems like that. But of course, whenever you're working on a TYCO locomotive, you know, they're old, 30, 40 some years old, you definitely want to make sure, especially with PowerTorques, they're temperamental, make sure that they're lubricated properly. So, I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I hope that it helps you to solve some of your squeaking TYCO PowerTorque problems. And I'm just very happy to be able to share what I've learned through my years of collecting TYCO with you all. So, thanks again.